Mayor, thanks for being here. You got into this race at the last minute. Why?
Well, I got in this race because we have to win in November. On Memorial Day weekend, President Trump endorsed Ty Masterson, and Ty Masterson will take the state of Kansas backwards, not forward. And I've been elected official in Overland Park for 21 years, and we have mayor for the last 5. And what I've learned as mayor is how you bring people together to get things done. And Ty's track record as the Senate president shows that he's not interested in doing that.
It caused a little bit of a rift within the party, especially from the leader of the party in Kansas, Governor Kelly, who called your race, you jumping into the race, thrown together in last minute. Clearly frustrated, she put out another ad recently doubling down on her endorsement for Senator Corson. What say you to that?
Well, I really respect the governor. I wish she would be more focused on who can win in November instead of who she endorsed a year ago to run for office.
You mentioned your experience in city government. How does that prepare you for state government, Topeka?
Well, you know, I'm the only one in this race who has created jobs, built housing, balanced a budget, and delivered for my community for year after year after year. That's a much different role. A mayor is a much different role than that of a legislator. Legislators aren't focused on the big picture, on the concept of what Kansans want. That's what I do every day, is we go through processes to understand what our residents want and deliver on those community-driven needs.
Let's talk about that. What's the biggest issue Kansans are saying facing them in let's say, the short term and then the long term?
Right, well, there's multiple big issues that this legislature has just ignored. One of them is health care. That's why I chose my running mate, Dr. Jen Bacani McKinney, who's a family practice doctor in Fredonia, Kansas, nationally recognized leader in rural health care. We need to solve health care in the state of Kansas so all Kansans have access to quality health care. There's 28 rural hospitals today at imminent threat of closure. That's because the Kansas legislature has chosen not to expand Medicaid or to put together a strategy to make sure all Kansans have access to health care.
Governor Kelly has tried time and time again to get Medicaid over the finish line. How would you be successful? What would your tact be there?
Well, I think that this has to bubble up from Kansans, and we need to take the agenda from the legislature and give it back to Kansans. And that's what I've done as mayor, right, is talking to Kansans about what their priorities are. The next time that a rural hospital closes, that is on the back of this Kansas legislature because they've chosen not to think about Kansans and their health.
Along the campaign, you've mentioned water resources is something we've covered here on the program. Yeah. How do you make sure that the Kansas water future is secure while also addressing the needs for big business? I know data centers have been top of mind, especially talking about the environmental impact there.
Yeah. You know, the last few weeks I've been traveling out to west and central Kansas talking about water. You know, we have studied water to death. My father was involved in a water study in the 1970s. Governor Brownback came up with an approach, and Governor Kelly has a current approach. We have studied water to death. It's now time to get things done.
So what do you do?
And so we empower local communities to find solutions that work for that community. The water issue is different across the state. In the west, it's the Ogallala Aquifer. In the middle part of the state, it is our reservoirs that are silting up. And then there's a lot of cooperation that needs to happen between communities and water utilities. And so it's about getting people together and building a consensus and getting it done.
Data centers aside, because that's been a fairly new development, agriculture is a huge user of water. So how do you address that while still maintaining the agriculture industry in Kansas?
Right, so I am not a believer in dictates from Topeka. That doesn't solve the problem. So what we need to do is empower local communities to work out the cooperation agreements of how they utilize their water to make sure that there's water supply for the future, that there's water for agriculture and local communities and local industry. And that is best worked out at the local level, not in the legislature in Topeka.
How do you tackle a dwindling revenue coming into the state at a time when affordability is a real concern?
Right. So this is about, we have in our agenda, it's called the Thrive Agenda. That's on our website, curtskoog.com. And it's about building thriving communities across the state, right? This current legislature has not made it a priority to build thriving communities. In Overland Park, that's what we've done, right? We have redeveloped, we have built, we're ranked as one of the best places to live, to work, to raise a family, to retire. And that is because of the intention of the community. We want to empower local communities to build their goals and their visions for their future in the state. Our role should be to support them and encourage them to fulfill their dreams of who they want to be.
Sure. I know house prices are insane right now, almost objectively, right? And rent is very high too.
Yeah.
So you can build more buildings, but how do you address the prices for people who want to live in those buildings?
We need more housing. Across the state, we need more housing. So in the last 5 years in Overland Park, we've built 3,400 new housing units. We need to build more. And across the state, we need to build more because there's not enough housing for the people who want to own or rent. And so the more housing, the less pressure there is on the price of housing.
We've talked a lot about many different issues. What's at the top of your agenda? What would you do day one as governor?
Well, day one is to break through this dysfunction and this division that we have in the state. I hear it across the state when I talk with people. They're sick and tired of all the fighting and all the arguing about non-important issues. We need to focus on the 3 or 4 common issues that Kansans care about that will lead us forward into the future and get those done for Kansans.
And those are?
Well, I've already mentioned water, healthcare, education are 3 of the core ones. We can't have thriving communities without people having access to healthcare so they don't have to drive 2 hours to a doctor's appointment. We need to build on our history of quality public schools. We need to fully fund our public schools and come up with a strategy of education from preschool all the way through postgraduate, including our technical schools. And think about things in a broader way instead of this bucket, that bucket, this bucket. And that's how we move the state forward and we thrive as a state.
Republicans run the legislature right now, which you've called dysfunctional quite a few times. They battled the Democratic governor on several issues, including Medicaid expansion, but again, that's just one of many.
Yeah.
How do you hope to get anything done if it maintains its supermajority Republican?
Well, I'm hopeful that in this election that we break through some of that supermajority. What I know is my competitors in this race are from the legislature, and they've been there 6 years and they haven't figured out how to do it, right? Coming from a mayor's point of view, I know how to build consensus and build connections. And it starts with what do Kansans want? We need to take the agenda for the state of Kansas back to Kansans and take it out of the hands of the few extreme leaders in the legislature who are driving the agenda today.
You mentioned a consensus. It goes without saying, but I'll say it. If you get this job, you don't just represent Johnson County, you represent an entire state, a very diverse state, as you said. How do you bring everyone in under the Curt Skoog tent, so to speak, and make sure their interests are being addressed?
Yeah, well, so I grew up in Topeka, and my career took me to Overland Park, like many Kansans. And, you know, it's hard work. I mean, in Overland Park, what we have done, we did the Vision Metcalf plan where we redeveloped Metcalf Avenue, including our downtown. And that's happened because we brought the community together to come up with a strategy. And that's what we will do at the state level. This is not about taking Overland Park to the rest of the state. This is about empowering local communities to fulfill their dreams of who they want to be. So in some communities, that's one new house. That will be transformative for 5 or 10 years. Other communities, they need 10, 20, 50 jobs so their kids and grandkids can stay in the community they grew up. Other communities are doing a wonderful job. They just need the support of the state to continue to build wonderful places that keep our kids and grandkids and attract others, because we need more people in Kansas, not less. And that's the trajectory we're on.
What do you do to keep people here?
Well, you have to build a place people want to be, right? And some communities are working really hard at that. Other communities need a little help to get there, and that's the role of the state government, is to help that happen. People have options today. They can, even in this part of the state, they can go to Nashville, they can go to Chicago, go all over this country. We need to build a place where they want to be, where they see themselves, and where their future is tied to the local community.
We'll leave it there for now. Mayor Skoog, thanks for your time.
Thank you.